Hi, I'm Michael Burton.
I'm Michiko Nita.
And we work together here based in London as an interdisciplinary studio called Burton Nita. And we're really excited to be launching our new project, The Instruments of the Afterlife, here at the V&A.
Instrument of the Afterlife. This project is based on the scientific research called Cleaning Land for Wealth, which is the, again, collaborative research project between 5 leading universities in UK, and they are looking at contaminated land and taking out contaminant metals and transforming that into valuable metals in the future.
The piece actually looks in the past and the future. We very much looked at the UK mining cultures and their demise in the 80s, with all the mines closing down, and all that's left from that way of life is quite often the contamination in the land, the shadow of the people who lived there. But for us it's really interesting because that's now becoming a valuable resource. It's actually the transformation of toxic waste to something that's very actually valuable material to make the next stage of the future. So it's kind of, the instruments are functional, they are cleaning the land, but they're also remembering the people who were there, who lived on that land, and the design of the instruments are almost creating a mind shift. So they don't look like a trombone or a composting machine or an incubation chamber. They're switching our view into a new possibility, and that's what we.
This is where we want to engage with the public. That we totally want to inspire audience with challenges of what new thing we can do. What is something we cannot think of in the future. So we are trying to. It's kind of an invitation to a new future with us, stepping forward.
Hello, I'm Václav. I'm one of the founders of Studio D4. In this project, we didn't want to start with a computer, because with 3D printing you usually start with the computer. But here we are starting with physical inputs. We are starting with your hands, and the whole design, the important part, is happening by your hands. So here we are bending wires, and how much we bend the wires and how many wires we choose actually makes the final shape of the lamp. And the computer and the 3D printer is used just as a tool to deliver the final object. So we are like combining really analog physical approach with a digital approach. So here we are starting with choosing how many wires we want to have in the final lamp, what's the length of the wires, and then we place them in this kind of simple jig and bend them by hand. And when you bend those wires, you actually make the final shape of the lamp. Then you measure the wire, the angle of the wire, how much you bend it, and you just type the measurements in the computer. And the software, we set it up before, actually generates automatically those small parts which are joining the wires. And that means that you don't need to do any 3D modeling anymore. You just type it in. The computer shows you the final lamp, how it will look like, and if you are happy, you just send it to the printer, print it, and then assemble it with your wires in the end. It's pretty much done.
My name is Ben Eaton, and I'm an interactive artist as part of a company called Invisible Flock. There's 4 of us in the company, and we're based in Leeds in the north of England, and we're here at the V&A to present If You Go Away, which is our latest work, which is a GPS-powered art game for multiple cities at once, and we've created a special version to take place in South Kensington, in and around the V&A, which takes you on a walk that lasts about an hour as the sun begins to set, guided by your mobile phone, using the phone as a cinema camera. You see a virtual world overlaid over the real one, and you kind of navigate this story and interact with the environment, and it sort of just takes you on this journey. And as part of the work, we've also got an installation here with us, which is our take on an old voiceograph booth. They used to record onto vinyl, but here we've done a digital version of it, a kind of reimagining of it for the London Design Festival.
And I work together with Marconet, and we have designed circular knitting, which is displayed here. And this is open source circular knitting machine. It means we have designed it from scratch, and our design files, STL ones and for laser cutter, are online. Everyone can take them and 3D print again the parts, laser cut the parts, and put together the circular knitting machine and have it to knit their stuff. Well, I think it's quite revolutionary in the digital fabrication world, because so far it has been really hard surface object production oriented. So we are speaking about 3D printers, laser cutters and CNC routers. So why not to use 3D printers and laser cutters for producing another machines, like knitting machines that will produce a textile. And with this research and work, we actually try to reintroduce a textile into this field, which has been forgotten. But its knitting technique is quite ancient, and I think it's very important to bring together craft and digital technology.
I'm Martin. I'm a creative technologist at Uniform. We're a design agency specialising in Internet of Things objects. Today we're exhibiting Casual Interfaces, which is a project exploring how we can connect faraway places through playful Internet of Things.
It needs a bit more of your hand because it's capacity-intensive.
Casual Interfaces explores how we can link groups of people to groups of people through 3 simple gestures. You can wave at a different place as if you're waving at someone in a room.
And watch videos?
You can knock on an object as if you're knocking on someone's door or on someone's desk.
So these could be in Mexico, and these could be in London. As long as there's Wi-Fi, they'd still be working.
And we're also measuring sound levels in an ambient way, so the background noise is translated into movement on a different object.
So I'm Tom Schofield. I'm an artist and interaction designer, and also more recently an academic, and I'm based in Culture Lab, which is a research institute part of Newcastle University. And so I'm here showing the Marginalia machine, which is a drawing robot, a plotter, which is drawing editorial notes from an archive of poetry held at Newcastle University. What happens is, as items are digitized into the collection, a computer program is looking at the images that it produces, trying to tell a difference between the printed poem and the editing notes around the outside, and then is redrawing those notes publicly to a sort of long scroll of paper here in the V&A. But another thing about the machine is that we were actually using it as part of a wider design process to help us think about what was interesting about those materials and the way they might be creatively reused. So alongside making the machine, we were producing an online exploratory interface to the archive materials, and that's at bloodaxe.ncl.ac.uk. And using some of the things that we found out through making the machine to sort of inflect that design work with creative or exploratory things. So, for instance, throughout the online catalogue, you can sort of filter just to look at the margin notes themselves. You can sketch the shape of a poem and look for things that actually visually match that sketch. You can explore connections between manuscripts through the words that they contain. And all of that was really sort of connected to the creative work we're doing in making sort of artworks like the Marginalia machine.
Hello, I'm Ming Lim from the University of Leicester School of Management. I'm the principal investigator for this project called Effective Digital Histories, Reinterpreting Deindustrial Places in Britain from the 1970s to the present. We are really focused on two places, Leicester and Glossop, which is on the border of Manchester and Derby. But I'd like to talk a little bit about Leicester today. Our project really wanted to do something very novel, which is to look at how we could invite residents, citizens and tourists to reimagine the past through sound technology and through new sounds. So what we did the project in 3 stages. The first stage was to develop a sound app that people could download on their iPhones and on any Android device, move around the cultural quarter and be able to hear the sounds of the past. So for instance, a factory and what a typewriter might have sounded like, a tanning factory, the making of leather, making of socks. And we did that, and then once we'd got all that app together, we ran a competition nationwide to find creative writers who were interested in engaging with historical archives and the sound app to create entirely new stories of how they think the history of Leicester might have looked like in the 1970s. Out of that, we now have 9 fantastic, beautiful stories, plays, poetry, fiction, Twitter fiction, flash fiction, and choreo poems, which are poems performed live. And we have some of the country's best writers and poets who've come forward to provide us with this wonderful project. And we invited everybody to a public launch at Phoenix, who is one of our partners, a cinema and cafe. And they've produced 2D representations of their new view of the history of deindustrial Leicester in Glossop. We then 3D printed these metaphors and symbols and found actually that they had completely changed our view of deindustrial history in Britain. And because these printed blocks were on wooden little blocks made by a company with a history stretching back to the 1970s, we now have a trajectory of deindustrial Leicester and Glossop that includes sound acts, sound trails, hidden stories written by creative writers, and 3D wooden blocks. And we're going forward with developing interactive video booths for people to tell their history, and maybe, very shortly, a mobile poetry or a mobile prose app that you could use when you travel any city in the world and wanted to understand its industrial past.
My name is Michael Shorter, I'm a researcher at the University of Dundee, and I'm here with the TapWriters. So the TapWriters are internet-connected printers. We've got 3 different networks. There's a yellow network, a green network, and a red network. The project started with the yellow network. There's 7 more of those printers in Dundee in independent shops there. And we gave them to these shopkeepers as an open platform to say, how can you use these printers to strengthen the feeling of the high street and how to connect these people together and create a better community. And then the green printers, we have 2 here, but there's another 6 in Mexico City in art galleries and independent shops there. And then we've got 6 of the red printers just here in the V&A as a demonstrator. So you can send content to these printers either via a website, just tapwriter.net, or you can just press a button on the printer themselves and it sends a tap from that printer to all the other printers. So if you're too busy to reply to a message, you can just acknowledge a message by tapping that button.
Nice. My name is Rike Glaser and I was exhibiting Measurable Identity, which is a biometric data exchange. So I designed this device called the Iriscope to take photographs of people's irises, and my goal is to create an individual iris archive of people. Personally, for me, I chose the eye because it's not yet implemented in day-to-day security technologies. People are more willing to give it away, but they kind of had to sign an agreement of that I wouldn't extract the biometric data myself, but that I could own the images basically. And the interesting part is like, for now, I don't know what I'm gonna do with these images. So the people are willing to sign this agreement, but who knows actually what would happen with this data in 5 to 10 years time from now. And this is kind of what I wanted to play with, like these gray areas and like how we deal with our own biometric data, basically. The good thing about this project is that people engage really easily with these images, and then later on ask like, okay, what is it actually about? And then you start a conversation about like the security technologies. But also other people just find it fascinating how these iris images look like and want to see their own eye, basically, that they've never seen before.
I'm Ben Bengler from Queen Mary University of London, and I showed together with my colleague Fiore Martin a project called Kaleidoscope, which is an interactive music piece that invites people to record sounds, record their voice, record sounds they just find, and then play with them, explore them in a playful and experimental way. Hands-on installation. Think about it as an empty synthesizer that you fill with sounds you find in the world, and then start to explore this and play with it. And the idea is to make it fun and make it easy accessible for people that might not have knowledge about music technology, just to bring it a little bit closer to just experiment with sound and have fun.
I'm Francesca Guerrera, and along with Francesco Orsi, we run Art Wonder, an app that aims to connect visitors in museums. So Art Wonder is a mobile app that connects visitors at the museum to help enrich each other's experience by learning together. Visitors with the app can get a guided journey around the V&A and invite others to join them as they tour. This is our first public test at the V&A, and our app aims to both give an educational service and a smart networking service where people can just profile themselves and ping other people while they go around in the visit, so that ideally everyone brings their personality, their knowledge, their point of view, and they can share their differences, which will end up enhancing the visit's experience for everyone.